Tonight, a doctor suffering from the Ebola virus in New York City remains in stable condition and his fiancée quarantined. This is Mayor Bill de Blasio, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Governor Christie trying to calm fears across New York and the region, why authorities say there's no reason to panic. And Election Day now less than 2 weeks away. Candidates making their final pushes to win more votes tonight. Green Party gubernatorial hopeful Howie Hawkins joins us on set to talk about the race and why he believes he has what it takes to take over the job. Plus, we'll also hear from Attorney General, who's running for re-election, Eric Schneiderman. Also, journalists across the country saying goodbye to a giant in our industry, Benjamin Bradley, and with him, possibly an end of an era. Bradley, who's best known for heading the Washington Post, as two reporters on his staff broke the Watergate scandal. Tonight, we're here from a federal journalist who knew him. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks for joining us. And tonight we begin in New York City, where a doctor who recently returned from West Africa, where he was treating Ebola patients, is now hospitalized himself. Health officials retracing the steps after learning that he rode the subway and went out with friends before being diagnosed. Marcy Gonzalez reports.
Today, New York officials trying to calm fears as the city's first Ebola patient battles the virus in this Manhattan hospital.
There is no cause for alarm. New Yorkers need to understand the situation is being handled and handled well.
Dr. Craig Spencer put in isolation after coming down with a fever yesterday, nearly a week after he returned from working with Doctors Without Borders treating Ebola patients in Guinea. We're told in the days before Spencer was diagnosed, the 33-year-old went to this bowling alley in Brooklyn, rode the subway, and ate in a restaurant. And while he reportedly felt tired at the time, he was showing no Ebola symptoms, which experts stress means he was not contagious. Mayor Bill de Blasio demonstrating that confidence riding the subway today. Health officials checking each place, though, as a precaution.
There is no risk of Ebola here.
Spencer's apartment now being decontaminated by hazmat crews, the same process done in Dallas where 2 nurses were infected. Both now free of the virus. One of them, Nina Pham, hugging President Obama in the Oval Office today, just hours after she was released from the hospital.
I join you in prayer now for the recovery of others, including my colleague and friend Amber Vinson and Dr. Craig Spencer.
And Dr. Spencer's fiance is quarantined in this hospital. 2 friends are in isolation in their homes, but we're told none has shown any symptoms. Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News, New York.
All right, Marcy. Now, some New Yorkers who live in Dr. Spencer's neighborhood, who went to places that he too visited before checking himself into the hospital, say they're not concerned about catching the virus.
They determined there's no risk to customers and employees that work here.
I don't think he was contagious when he was here, so it doesn't scare me.
On the question about the 3 establishments, bowling alley, coffee shop, and restaurant, again, we have OEM and health department personnel at each of the sites. In the case of the bowling alley, it was reviewed and cleared. The other 2 are going through the process as we speak.
And as I mentioned, this was not just restricted, obviously, to the 5 boroughs. Today, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and Governor Cuomo said they're issuing mandatory quarantine for travelers who have had contact with Ebola-infected patients in West Africa. They say a healthcare worker who came into contact with Ebola patients in Africa is being quarantined, even though she has no symptoms. The woman flew into Newark Liberty Airport earlier today. And just as an aside here, it was a little interesting to me, as some in the chattering class, what they had to say about Dr. Spencer today and talking about irresponsibilities, etc. This is a man who went to West Africa with Doctors Without Borders. This is a person who went into to treat where it is in effect ground zero in Africa. And for his thanks, he gets some that say that he was being irresponsible and not thinking of others. And he's got even others in the elected offices, some, and also, as I said, in the 4th estate, who have decided here that basically we should shut off all our borders, as if that would solve the problem in Africa. All right, head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on today's question. Ebola in New York. Have officials put you at ease? Up next, speaking of journalists across the country, they paused to remember former Washington Post executive editor Ben Bradley, and with him possibly an end of an era. After the break, we'll be speaking with a fellow journalist with the pleasure of knowing him. Stay with us.